This compartment are the manual controls for the stabilizers, diverter valve override, and additional EPU switch. I do have a tag. It says warning, death or serious personal injury, because these are manual override controls. They are labeled on the door for the function. The four to the left are going to be my rear controls. So I have rear, left beam, out and in. If I need to use the manual control to bring the left rear beam out, I will push the black button on the top. If I need to bring that left rear beam in, I push the button on the bottom. The four on the right will be your front stabilizers, basically the same. Now, the way the label's on the door, they're not quite exactly straight across, so you may have to count down to the one you need. Make sure you're activating the right switch. If I had a situation where these were disabled, they became damaged, I lost the power to them, and the truck is running with the PTO engaged, because I always need hydraulic pressure to operate these, I could just push the buttons accordingly to operate where I want to go with them. Right now the truck is not running, I need to operate the EPU. I have an additional switch here, because again, if these are disabled, I cannot use the switch that's up there. So I have my left rear jack down, I need to bring that up. So I'll go with the left rear jack up, which is my second one. I'm going to push the button up and in and hold the electric switch down. Stabilizer moving? Okay. I cannot see the stabilizer, so you do need to have a spotter when you're operating those manual controls. They push very hard. You want to push straight up and in. What you have a little puck, a little smaller than a dime. Internally in the center is a little pin about 3/32 of an inch. When you push that puck down or in, you need to push straight in and push awfully hard, because they push hard. Always push the button first and activate the switch, because once you create hydraulic system pressure, it's going to be a lot harder to continue out of that. Okay, diverter valve overrides. What the diverter valve does, it separates my hydraulic system pressure from stabilizer up to aerial, and vice versa. Right now, the aerials in the bed, stabilizers are not all planted. All oil is diverted to stabilizer function. Once I have all four firmly planted, the oil diverts from stabilizer up to aerial. Once the aerial comes out of the boom support, everything is diverted up the aerial. I no longer have stabilizer functions. That happens with the switches or the proximity switch sensors when you're operating. So, stabilizer or a proximity switch need to be planted, all four. Let's say we went to one proximity switch. We got stabilizer planted, bulge out of the tire, but the proximity switch is not lit up. So we know we have the weight off the suspension, we're safe to operate. Proximity switch is not lit. To get the aerial out of the boom support, I would hold this. A second operator will operate the aerial out of the boom support up on top. You have to remain holding. Once the aerial comes out of the boom support, breaks the proximity switch, and no longer monitors the stabilizers, I can let go. They have full operating up above. My rotation limit and override is up above, so even if I were short jacked, I'd be safe to operate at that point. Then you remember, when you bring the ladder back into the boom support, once it contacts the boom support, it shuts the aerial off again because it senses the stabilizers are not planted. You would need a second person again to hold this, to preset the bed when you bring the ladder into the boom support up above. All right, situation where you may have to use a stabilizer override. The aerial's up in the air, you're operating. Again, we have a proximity switch that senses when it's in the bed. During time of operating, that became damaged, quit working, whatever the case. You got the ladder firmly planted in the bed. The system does not recognize it because that is not operating. So if that were the case, you would have to pull the stabilizer override and then remain holding while you push the buttons to bring the stabilizers up and in. When this switch is active, it activates the diverter valve. So if you had a situation where you may have to pull this and push the buttons and hold that, you don't have to do that. When I activate this, it theoretically is pulling that as well, and I can just push the buttons accordingly, so you don't need a third hand inside.